This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. On the show, you'll hear from leading Australian business owners as they share the lessons they've learned building their companies. You'll learn from their successes as well as some of the challenges they faced along the way. We also talk to experts from a range of fields who share specialised techniques you can use to improve your business. I'm your host, Savan Tuna, and I'm a director at Alexander Spencer, and I'm really passionate about helping Australian businesses succeed. Today, we're speaking to Chris Angrakian, Managing Director at Managed Services Australia, one of Australia's fastest growing managed IT service providers. What is awesome about Managed Services Australia is that they work around the clock, proactively monitoring business networks and infrastructure to ensure they are always secure. In today's episode, you'll hear about cybersecurity and crime. You'll learn about the common threats that face businesses today, the risks working from home has on cybercrime exposure, and what to do if you're impacted by cybercrime. Let's jump in. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you going, Sev?
Good, thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
So before we start, I'd love to get a bit of an understanding of your professional background. So do you want to give us a little bit about yourself and Managed Services Australia?
Sure. I've been in IT for many, many years and through into consulting and into sort of corporate enterprise. Eventually landed a gig looking after Skilled Group. We had about 4,000 staff, 200 branches across Australia, UK, UAE, Malta, US. And I ran the help desk and all the engineers and service delivery across that business. It was great. We were working in the mining sector and offshore oil and gas, big labour hire companies. And then I started this company.
Yeah, so do you want to tell me a little about Managed Services and what you do within Managed Services Australia?
Yeah, so Managed Services Australia was coined from, I think, a lack of tech that we had in the sort of small to medium business space. We had big budgets in corporate enterprise and a lot of money to buy cool technology. And I was finding that tech wasn't getting pushed into the smaller businesses. And yeah, it was a bit of a shame because they really needed it. They just didn't have the budget for it. So try to find technology that could work across both, could still deliver the same solution, but at a smaller cost. So yeah, so that's where, we've come from, and we've been around for now 5 years.
Chris, I wanted to talk about cybersecurity today. You mentioned that before, that it's a service that you provide. The government estimates cybersecurity incidents costs Australian businesses $29 billion per annum. But before we dive deep, what does that cover? What is cybercrime and cybersecurity?
Okay, cybersecurity is the prevention of, theft of data, damage of computer systems, and protection of personal identifying information using specific tools, hardware and software and AI.
So can you please just describe some of the common threats that businesses face in cybercrime?
I think number one is sort of ransomware and Trojans and viruses, etc., infecting your desktop computers. And that also sort of spreads into servers and, cloud-based systems. And then you've got things like social engineering, identity theft, and the protection of personal identifiable information. You've got email scams, phishing scams, a lot of fraud.
And of all those ones, which one do you see is the one that's used the most?
I think over the last few years, ransomware has been running rampant across the globe, and we still see that quite heavily every single day. Ransomware is where a virus will infect the computer and encrypt all the data that's on that computer or server, and then they'll ask for ransom, whether it be with Bitcoin or, you have to pay to get that data back.
Wow.
A lot of ransoms have been paid, but they don't always give you your data back.
And is paying the right thing to do, or it just sounds so weird to have to pay to get your data back? And then
it's a big risk. And like they say in the movies, we don't negotiate with terrorists. So you're better off having a better plan. So things like awareness and education, things like disaster recovery and backup, having the right antivirus in place, having, the latest, threat prevention and just doing the right things, I think.
You mentioned social engineering. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, okay. So social engineering is where someone will try to impersonate you Could be financial sector, somebody calling from a call center and asking you for your personal information, your first name, last name, date of birth, your address. And that's all they really need to hack into your life, really. And it happens every single day.
Do they, when they take that data, is it mainly just credit card fraud? Do they access your bank account? Like, what do they do once they've gotten that information?
They can really do anything. That's all most people need to ID you, whether it's, your superannuation fund or your bank account or any online services platform. So really the sky's the limit. So it's really important that you don't take unsolicited calls and not hand out that information as best as possible. So there's a lot of ways that you can prevent these things from happening.
And we will go through that later on, which I'm really looking forward to. Yeah. I've actually seen a lot of these phishing emails in the past. I've had clients ring us every now and then and saying, I got an email from the ATO or I got an email from this person. Does this look right? Yep. So phishing is one that I've actually seen in my business and within my clients.
Yep.
Again, can you give us a bit more of an idea what that entails? What does that mean?
Most of the threats that are coming in to any business at the moment, or even a personal, is via email. So that's files that have been infected, links to, phishing emails, links to banks. They basically impersonate the login page and they steal your information. So your username and password. It's important to have some sort of security in place before those emails reach your inbox. So hosted email security is really what you need to prevent that stuff from coming through. And there's a number of obviously platforms out there that we use. One that we sort of recommend, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
I think really just knowing that there is something out there that is going to prevent that from happening, and it's going to save you a lot of money in the long run.
Well, let's dive deep into the technology that businesses should have in place to protect themselves. And obviously, some of the smaller companies may not have the services that you provide.
Yep.
So what can businesses do to protect themselves, and what technology should they have in place?
The biggest thing is awareness. So understanding what a phishing email is, understanding what ransomware is, knowing what those things sort of look like and how to identify these emails. Have a look at the sender. Are they coming from a legitimate source? Have a look at the links that you're clicking on in those emails. Are they going to that domain? If it's an ATO email, is it going to ato.com.au or ato.gov, or is it going to some other, Russian website somewhere in there?
Yeah.
So, just being aware of those things. And there's a lot of resources online to help you identify those things. So if it's yourself or your staff, just circulating some documentation around sort of what to look for. And we do that with our clients as well.
And the education piece sounds like a very first up starting point.
That is the first prevention. And then obviously the technologies, having a healthy security framework. So we follow a 3-layer framework where we look at your cloud email security, because most of the threats are coming through email. So those emails, spam, and get quarantined. Any viruses come through, they get quarantined straight away. And we review the emails that come in, and if we think that they're safe, we'll release them for our clients. So it's a sort of a 2-step process where they see it, they get a report, and then we release it if we think it's safe. Then you've got your network security, so to prevent hackers from hacking into your servers locally on site, your phone system and things like that, or any NAS drives and storage that you have, computers on site. So it's important to have a good firewall, not just a dodgy modem from a local retailer, but actually a firewall that has good solid security on it. And then the third layer is obviously having healthy antivirus on your desktops. Now it's sort of morphed into some awesome artificial intelligence, cyber threat detection, and there's really cool products out there where at the moment when a computer is detected, even if it's a false positive or we find a file on a computer that might be harmful, it will disconnect that device from the network. It will notify us that that's been disconnected. It'll still allow us to log in and remote into the computer and neutralize that threat. And then once we feel that it's safe again, we can actually notify the user to continue working. We can also roll back any scripts or changes that have been implemented. So if it's ransomware, if it goes and encrypts all your files, we can actually just roll every single step back to what it was within minutes. Whereas you couldn't do that, 12 months ago, that technology wasn't around. So it's really awesome stuff now. So
and is this something...
geeky.
Is this something? It is geeky, but it's really important to business. So the products that are available, are they only available to sort of professionals like yourself, or is this some of these things that small business owners can just go and get themselves, or what's sort of your
I think
recommendation
with the right guidance and knowledge, they can. But it's obviously having a comprehensive strategy is really going to help. So picking a managed service provider that's going to be able to do that for you. And not all managed services providers are doing it. It's, the ones that have got their finger on the pulse and sort of are looking at the technology landscape out there constantly, seeing what's the best tech and using the best tech. They're the ones that you want to partner with. So you can get it right. And the costs aren't much. And everything's readily available, I guess. So most people would think that, this stuff will cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's not.
And as an example, what would you say? So just an average business, they might have 5 employees, 5 computers and whatnot. What would it cost to sort of service someone like that?
You're looking at about $1,000 a month.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's unlimited support, unlimited remote and on-site support, all your security covered and basically everything that goes with it. So that's sort of what's out there at the moment in terms of sort of pricing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to talk about people. You talked about training that's available and that you provide, and there's some readings.
Yep.
Is there specifically a website or a process that you would recommend?
Look, there's a number of forums online. We always sort of follow the stuff that gets sent to us from our vendors. So if you look at, the things that sort of Microsoft are sending through, the guys at Malguard, they've always got stuff going on. Fortinet, they're our sort of firewall provider. They're sending us some awesome stuff. The technology for cyber threat prevention, it's called Sentinel-1. There's a lot of videos out there, so you can have a look at that. So there's plenty of material online.
Employees are now working more and more from home. Are there any additional risks in the home office setup that exposes businesses more than in the office?
Yeah, I think there is. Obviously, that you can control a lot more, obviously, in that sort of corporate environment because we're purchasing the equipment. We're making sure that it's all up to date. It's within the sort of the technology roadmap and strategy that we have. People working from home, they've just got, basic Telstra modems. There's no security on them. Sometimes they've still got the default password. Anyone can log into them. And then obviously, if they're using their own personal computer, there's not the level of security that they would want to have in a business device, that's connected to your company domain. So it's important to try and control a lot of that. For our clients, the ones that are working from home, we'll supply them with a router, we'll secure it, we'll manage it for them, and we monitor it as well so we know what's happening.
So let me get this right. So if you're working from home, everyone has internet at home. You're working from home, we VPN in to our network, but I'm using my internet with the modem that Telstra's provided me. Can hackers actually use the internet connection to get in? Is that the thing
That's
you're
where
talking
they
about?
start, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And if you haven't got the right security on your device or, if you're VPNing in with, basic passwords or whatever, people can watch you and pick up trends and eventually they'll get in. If you follow all of the steps, you're preventing a lot of the intrusions from happening, but it's not to say that it's never going to happen. Because I guess, so hackers are getting more sophisticated every day. And every day we see another breach, another big company going down or, another system getting hacked or another big exposure somewhere. So it doesn't matter. Technology is always evolving.
Can you share an example of a business that was negatively impacted? You don't have to obviously say names, but I'd love to hear some of the stories that shows how important this is.
Yeah, look, I had a client just recently, they were trading with a supplier of theirs, sent an email invoice to obviously a customer, which got intercepted. They changed the bank details on that invoice and sent it to the supplier for payment, and they lost, I think it was, $10,000. And that was due to lack of security on their email account.
I've seen that quite a bit. That's quite a common one.
Yep.
And we try to educate our clients around that because it does involve sort of that accounting side of things when they're paying an invoice and actually having systems other than just the email technologies to protect yourself, but actually, having 2-signature authentication. If you're updating a bank account for a supplier, actually physically ringing them, as opposed to just going off an email?
I think the compliance requirements now for both parties is if there is going to be a bank change, then it's up to both sides to ensure that they confirm via phone and also via email that that's been done legitimately. Look, I guess if it had to go to legal, then I'm sure both parties would be liable potentially. But it's important to make sure that they do those checks and balances before you do transfer money, especially. You made a good point about two-level sort of authentication and two-factor authentication. What would have prevented that from happening was if they had two-factor authentication enabled on their email. And that way, if someone did get their password, they wouldn't be able to access it unless they had their device. So any provider now, whether it's sort of cloud or not, should be able to offer you two-factor authentication. So having that code and having that second level of security is paramount. I'll give you another example.
Yeah, love to hear it.
Quite a large organisation actually that referred to us from sort of mutual contact, $40 million in revenue, doing a lot of government work, and they got hacked. Their server got hacked. Ransomware encrypted all their files. They didn't have a backup in place. The company that was managing them wasn't monitoring their backups and basically just wiped their hands of it. 13 weeks they were down. They lost quite a lot of money. They couldn't recover their data and it took quite a long time to get a lot of it back. We tried to reverse what had been done, but 12 weeks downtime for any business, you're basically shutting the doors. They were luckily able to sort of recover from it. But even after the initial detection and response, the provider that was with them still had left fragments of that infection on their server.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
So we came in post, obviously, and did an audit and identified that it was still on there.
Jeez.
And so, you might think that your provider's doing the right thing by you, but unless you get other eyes on there, you're not really going to know. So it's healthy, and I can tell you straight up that it's worth getting a second opinion, even mid-contract.
Yeah.
Just get someone in and do a review.
Yeah.
Are they doing the right thing? Is there ways that we can be doing it better? Just to keep them sort of honest, because you can't really afford it. I wouldn't trust my, $40 million business with a provider, especially if I've just been breached, because obviously you're paying them and you're trusting them to do the right thing. And, if your business has been affected to that degree, then it's definitely worth getting someone else to have a look at it.
If a business is affected from a threat, and you gave an example just there, what is the first thing they should do? You mentioned the word response. What is that?
Stop, disconnect the device from the network. Our systems do that automatically now, so we're sort of a little bit ahead of that. Turn it off, contact your supplier, contact your IT company, let them know straight away. Notify everybody in the business. If you've got any passwords, change them straight away. Just try and think like the guys that are trying to breach your system, and then that way you can keep a couple of steps ahead. But most providers will handhold you through the whole process, make sure that you've got relevant backup and recover the systems as quick as possible. So there's no business downtime. That's that main goal for us, is to sort of get you back online as quick as possible.
You mentioned passwords. I'm guessing that's a very important part of security and protection. What are your tips around passwords?
Use LastPass or a password management program. Make sure they're complex. Don't use the same password for every single login.
Oh, no, I'm stuffed already.
So so the minimum for us is 12 characters, special characters, numbers and letters. That's the mix. LastPass will let you generate a new password for every single login. It saves it in Chrome and you can use it across all your devices. And it's probably the best thing that's happened to me personally, I think, because, it's just
and
keeps track of everything.
With LastPass, I've never actually heard of it. So is that a sort of an online program?
It's just an app that plugs into Google Chrome and also on your phone, so you can get it on your Apple device and your Android device, and it basically saves all your passwords.
And is that for sort of an organisation that has many employees? Do you just get everyone to use LastPass as part of the process, or is it a enterprise that buys the software? And
No, look, it's more on a personal level.
Yep.
For us, for document management, password management, we use a special tool for the IT sector, which obviously records all that data, and it's quite secure. But for businesses, you're not going to have many logins, so LastPass is more than sufficient for most businesses and for personal use as well. So.
And what are the most common mistakes you see that exposes businesses to cybercrime?
Look, we're doing a lot of dark web monitoring stuff at the moment where passwords are breached, they get published on the dark web, and we've got tools where we can actually just go through and scan the dark web and pick up where, you might have put in your credentials to HP or Canva or Microsoft or something, and it will give us a report. But we're taking it to the next level now where we can actually do dummy phishing emails and send them out to.
Does he go the other way now? You're phishing the.
So we're phishing internal employees now. So we actually send out dummy phishing emails to employees and see what they actually do. So is Johnny in HR? Is he going to click on this link? Is he going to put his Microsoft credentials into this dodgy email? And then we get that report back and we feed that back into the leadership team, and it's a little bit more proactive. So we know who are going to be the culprits if we do actually have an attack, and then we provide some education around that.
I think that's great. That's a great service because you sort of. So I thought when you meant phishing, I thought you were phishing the dark web back to but you actually.
So there's two parts to it. So there's two parts. So the first part obviously is identifying if anyone's put their email out onto that's been hacked and it's on the dark web. But the second part is obviously preventing that from happening by sending out dummy emails to internal staff and seeing how they're going to respond to. So, it's quite sophisticated, I think.
What do you find of the ones that you've done? What percentage of employees, is it 10% that get caught?
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Well, what did you
do a test on your guys.
We should do a test. I reckon all the partners will fail.
So, look, it's sort of, 60-40, I think.
Oh, wow, that high.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Because most people just, they think that they're doing the right thing. You need to change your password or, the bank's asking for something or the ATO, user group certificate or something that you need to get from the ATO or, the one good one is like MyGov. There was one just a couple of weeks ago where MyGov, there was a scam where they were requesting MyGov sort of passwords and stuff. So it's good to just be in front of it, at least so you know how to deal with it. You
mentioned costs, so I wanted to talk about costs. So your services is sort of saying about average $1,000 a month, but that's sort of for the service. In terms of a new business that's got to, buy a computer, buy a laptop, buy a modem, what basic technology cost are you looking for in terms of technology?
No worries. Look, for us, we help a lot of startups. And if it's a one-man band, in the financial services, a mortgage broker or, financial planner or something, if you could probably get away with it for under $10,000 a year. And that covers all your security, your Office 365 subscription, your backup and prevention and some auditing, some, support and maybe a computer. Most businesses, up to 10 staff should consciously be setting their budgets for technology around the $20,000 to $50,000 mark. Okay. And that will get them quite a lot. $50,000 is a lot of money for a business. That should sort of cover anyone up to let's say 15 users.
Yeah, fantastic.
And it really depends on what kind of technology, but you could really get away with a lot sort of under that in that budget.
My last question is about the cloud. So we talked about security and I've got some clients that were very hesitant just around the whole cloud piece. And, we moved a lot of clients from, desktops, my software and QuickBooks and whatnot, and over the years to Xero, where the data's in the cloud. And I think nearly everything's in the cloud these days.
Everything.
How does security and cloud and all that work?
Look, I think a lot of these vendors are doing their best to try and stay ahead of, obviously, the security part of it. Being in the cloud, it's always going to be a hard thing to control, but everything's moving to cloud. So you just need to make sure that these guys have got a healthy strategy. They're transparent. They've got well-documented processes. They've got that strong, complex password requirements. They've got two-factor authentication. They've got security questions, and they've got good infrastructure sort of behind them. So most vendors you can do research on, and you can speak to them and they can advise you on what are these processes and how are they protecting your data. It's one thing we can't get away from, but it's important that we sort of are conscious about who we're partnering with as well, because, you might go on to the internet and put your personal details out to 20 different platforms a year, but you don't know if that stuff's safe. but I can tell you how to check if it's been breached. So
Wow.
there's a platform you can check to see if your email address has been breached on the internet.
Christopher Angrakian, thank you so much for having us on the show today. We learned a lot about cybercrime, cybersecurity. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Awesome. This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. This podcast was produced by accountancy firm Alexander Spencer. At Alexander Spencer, we've been helping business owners realise their goals since 1952, and we play a pivotal role in developing, implementing, and supervising the business goals and strategies of our clients. To find out how we can help your business succeed, head to our website, alexanderspencer.com.au. To make sure you don't miss an episode of The Bottom Line, be sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Savan Tuna, and we'll be back next episode with more tips to help you transform your business. And that's The Bottom Line.